this morning we're getting dressed for a walk about the grounds, but we're taking very special care. This is a winter resort, and the people that come here are rich, famous, and powerful. So we want to be seen by those people, but even more importantly, we want to be seen with them.
Now, looking around the room, I can see that a great many of you are dressed far more casually than we would ever dream of appearing in public. In fact, we would never go out unless we were comme il faut. That is to say, dressed just properly for the occasion and the locale. And now all of this took time. It might take a lady as long as an hour and a half to dress in the morning, and that's not counting the elaborate arrangement of her hair. It would take a gentleman almost that long. As you see us now, you would never have seen us in public.
Oh no, my wife and I are in our dressing gowns, and this is how a husband and wife would dress in the privacy of their own bedroom. They wouldn't even go down to breakfast dressed like this. Now my wife's dressing gown is a kimono. It's from Japan. My gown has Middle Eastern designs, and my hat is from North Africa. We Victorians mix all those styles together, and we call them Oriental. And in 1891, that's the cutting edge of fashion. But not just for clothes, also for buildings. Show of hands, who noticed the silver domes and minarets when you pulled into the hotel this morning? Good eye, good eye. One of the reasons why this building has domes and minarets is because of Oriental fashion. And in 1891, you can find buildings from Tampa, Florida to Burbank, California with domes and minarets.
Now, just as a splendid building like this begins with a good foundation, so an elegant suit of clothes also begins with a good foundation. Therefore, I think we should begin by showing you our foundation garments, the bottommost layer that we wear. And my husband being a captain of industry and a leader in all things, I'm sure would be happy to begin.
First? By myself? But let me make you a sporting proposition. No, better than that, let me be very polite and say, ladies first. We Victorians are very, very polite. Ladies first, my dear.
Oh, ladies, isn't he just the most gallant thing you've ever seen? But no, we ladies just follow the lead of our brave gentlemen. I couldn't dream of going ahead of you, so start.
Now, the sporting proposition. We are very modest people, we Victorians. As I mentioned before, we would never even go down to our own breakfast table dressed like this. So to help us overcome our inhibitions, I need your help. What I'll do is I'll hold up my fingers and you'll shout 1, and then 2, and then 3. And when the young ladies and gentlemen shout 3, you and I will disrobe together. Are you with me, ladies and gentlemen? All right, just a quick reminder, this is live theater, and I can indeed see each and every one of you, so we'll try this again. Are you with me, ladies and gentlemen? Yes! Much better, we shall proceed. Here we go, and... 1. Good job! 2. Superb! 3. Capital, you're doing that.
I don't think so.
Darling.
I couldn't.
Sweetie, the purpose of us going together is that we go together. Again, we Victorians are very modest, very shy. Good and loud. Let's overcome here. And... 1. Darling.
Not.
Look at their faces, hungry for knowledge, thirsting for enlightenment. It's not for us, dear. It's for the children. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. And
1, 2, 3.
Oh, you did that very, very, very well.
Oh, well,
They've been counting for years. Oh, wait.
All right. Well, we may as well start at the very bottom with our shoes. Now, in our day and age, you can go into a store, just as you can now, and buy a pair of shoes in your size off the rack. But if you have money, and we certainly do, you have your very own shoemaker, your own cobbler. He makes a drawing of your foot and produces all your shoes just for you. Shoes are usually made of a high-quality leather, though lady shoes can be velvet or satin for evening wear, and all shoes are either buttoned or laced. On top of their shoes, people wear...
Spats. The gray cloth covering over my shoe is known as a spat. That's short for spatterdash. Its purpose is to keep the upper part of my shoe stain-free. Men's shoes are made with 2 different kinds of leather, very stout leather on the bottom and a very fine kid leather on the top, and that stains easily. And one of the things that causes staining is lack of pavement. Show of hands, you noticed the brick road when you pulled into the hotel this morning. Excellent. In 1891, that brick road is the only paving in the entire city of Tampa. Even as late as 1898, Tampa was described as wooden houses drifting in a sea of sand. Now, roads when they're not paved are dusty when it's dry, muddy when it's wet, and there's a third huge contributor to the mess, animal transportation. In the 1890s, as soon as you got off of a railroad car or a steamship, chances are good the next thing you got on that move will be pulled by a big animal, like a horse. And when you have a big animal like a horse, you have, oh, how to put this delicately, I think I have a solution. Boys and girls, how many of you have a dog or a cat at home? Sure. And how many of you had to clean up an accident left by your dog or cat? All right. An animal the size of a horse leaves 25 pounds of accident a day. 4 horses, 100 pounds of accident a day. 80 horses, 1 ton of accident in a day. And even a small city the size of Tampa has a lot more than 80 horses in it.
Well, now, let's go to hose or stockings. Both men and women wear them. Men's hose are usually dark, black or navy, and the ladies' hose are light and even brightly colored. They are all held up by elastic garters. Ladies' hose might even be decorated with designs or stripes. That's because that's the only part of a woman's underclothing it was considered all right to show in public. So as a woman was stepping up on a curb or getting into a carriage, she might just lift her long skirt to show a few inches of brightly colored stocking.
Young men live for just such moments.
Now, a woman's bottommost garment is in 2 pieces. A pair of loose trousers called French drawers or knickers, and a little blouse called a camisole or corset cover. These were always made of a good quality soft cotton, though if you had money, they could be silk. Do you remember that lovely ensemble we bought in Paris last year?
Yes, I think we're still paying for it.
And they would be decorated, of course, with fancy sewing and lace and colored ribbon.
Now, I'm wearing the most common men's undergarment of the time. It's known as long johns or a union suit. It's called a union suit because the top and the bottom are joined into one piece. It's made of heavy cotton because I'm at a winter resort where it's warm, and where I up north where it's cold, it would be made out of wool. It buttons all the way up the front and in the back for all of life's necessities.
Now, on top of her bottommost garments, a woman in the 19th century wore the single most important undergarment she owned, her corset. Corsets have been around since the Renaissance. At that time, they were worn by both men and women, and their job was simply to make the middle part of your body smooth and flat, so that your clothing would hang nicely on you and not get all bunched up around the waist. But in the mid-1800s, the job of the corset changed, and at that point, its role was to make a woman's waist small, because a small waist was considered very fashionable. How small? Put your hands together so your thumbs are barely touching and spread your fingers out. Do you see that opening in the middle? That's how big your waist should be. That's about 18 to 22 inches, about as big around as your head. Now, to get a waist that small, women started corseting very young, at the age of 6 or 7. And if they wanted to be really fashionable women, they would then wear a corset every single day of their lives, including when they were expecting babies. Yes, there were maternity corsets. Many women wore corsets at night because they were afraid their waist might get bigger while they were sleeping. Corsets were originally stiffened with wood or bamboo or whalebone, but that wasn't strong enough to get the tiny waist required by fashion in the late 19th century. For that, we used
steel. Steel is the backbone of the Gilded Age. Thanks to gentlemen like Andrew Carnegie, steel is plentiful and reasonably priced. We use it for everything. Bridges, buildings, warships, men's eyeglass frames, and even women's foundation garments.
Now, a steel bone corset by itself For that, we rely on a clever invention of the French. The back of the corset has a double row of eyelets. These are threaded with stout cord. This is where a woman has to have someone help her get dressed in the morning. Normally my lady's maid does this, but she's not here, so my husband will have to stand in.
Oh, all right. How does one go about this?
Well, you pull the corset edge to edge, and then you take the center cords, they're called the puller cords, and pull them as tight as you can and tie them off.
All right, I shall endeavor to give satisfaction here. So, edge to edge, and then take the puller cords and pull them tight, yes?
Absolutely.
Right, here we go. There you go.
My dear,
yes?
my maid is just a little slip of a girl, and she can do better than that. Put your back into it, man.
Very well.
Tighter. Tighter! I want a small waist. Tighter!
That sounds about right. I believe I have heard that in the morning. There you go.
I feel slim.
You look slim.
I feel svelte.
She looks svelte.
I can't breathe.
What?
I can't take a deep breath.
Well, what should I do?
My spellings.
Well, where are they?
They're my reticule.
Reticule, the reticule.
Hurry.
Hang on, my dear. Persevere. Courage, I come. There you are, darling. There you are. Now, these are smelling salts, also known as spirits of ammonia. Ladies carried these because when they were very tightly corseted, it was hard for them to get a deep breath. And even simple exertion, like walking around the grounds of the hotel, could leave them feeling quite dizzy. And so they kept these in case they were feeling faint, and this would revive them by its May I be of some assistance, my dear?
I hope so.
There you are, darling. Now, I suppose the next thing I should put on is my shirt. And right away, you'll see there's a lot of differences between this shirt and shirts in your day and age. Probably the first thing that leaps out at you are all these pieces of metal in the front. There's even a piece of metal here in the back of the collar. Now, those pieces of metal hope to hold my shirt together. We have buttons in the Victorian era, thousands and thousands of them, but these are called studs. They're gold with a mother-of-pearl facing, and they have a very important job. They let people know I have money. Money is very important to the Victorians. In America, it's one of the ways they judge your social standing. So you want people to know you have money, and one of the fastest ways is to wear expensive items of clothing. Now, there is also a piece of metal in the back of my collar. That's because this shirt has interchangeable collars. Doing the laundry in the Victorian era is a long, hard, and often dangerous business. So to get the most wear out of any one garment, the parts that people see, the collars, and sometimes even the cuffs, are removable and interchangeable. And when it comes to collars, I've got several choices. Now, this is a cloth collar. That's what I'm going to be wearing when it's on. It looks very much like a shirt from your day and age. But I could also go with this, a paper collar. This is made from a really thin glazed cardboard. You might find something like this in the back of a notebook at your school. It's very inexpensive. So once it gets dirty, it can be tossed, and you can get another one for next to nothing. Or, if you're very frugal, you can clean this with a pencil eraser and get several days' wear out of it. My third choice is this. Listen to this. This is celluloid, a new miracle substance by us Victorians. It's very stiff and very rigid, similar to your plastics, except celluloid's made from gun cotton. Gun cotton's an explosive, blows things up really well. But if you treat it the right way, you can make men's clothes, children's toys, billiard balls, even false teeth. And according to the New York Times in 1875, a gentleman with celluloid teeth bit down too hard on his supper and blew the whole thing right out of his mouth.
Now I am wearing just two petticoats. I say just two because a well-dressed woman in the 1890s would have worn as many as 7 or 8, winter or summer. Now for winter and cold climates, petticoats were made out of something heavy like linen or wool, and for summer or warm climates, they would be made out of a lightweight that when she was wearing one, she couldn't really sit. She could just perch on the edge of a chair. Thankfully, bustles in the 1890s have gotten small, and they're just ruffled pads worn in the small of a woman's back. Nevertheless, they're very odd pieces of clothing. Why would you wear something like that? When I put on my skirt, you'll understand.
Now I'm going to put on my trousers or pants. But before I do, let me ask a quick question. How many of you have zippers in your clothing? Zippers. Quite a few. They seem to have caught on. No zippers during the Victorian era. They weren't even introduced into the United States until the Great Exhibition of 1893, and they are viewed with immense suspicion. Basically, people feel that no one needs to get in or out of their clothes that fast. Instead of zippers, pants button. And it doesn't matter if you're a farmer, or a fireman, or a policeman, or the President of the United States, all men's pants button. You'll also notice there's no belt loops on these pants. That's because belts are not supposed to help a men's pants, but rather braces or suspenders are. And like everything else, they attach to buttons. Now in the back I've got a strap, and that's known as a cinch. And what that does is it allows me to change the waist size of my pants without having to get them retailored. And since I'm here at a winter resort noted for its fine cuisine, I plan to be letting that out a couple of notches before I leave here.
This easy method of adjusting the waistbands on a pair of trousers led to an expression that we still use. If something's easy, we say it's a cinch. Now I'm wearing a walking skirt. It's called this because that's what a woman wore when she walked out of her house. So if I went to have tea with a friend or do some shopping or visit the library or something like that, this is the skirt I would be wearing. Very fashionable. But what do you notice about it? Which part is longer, the front or the back? The back, yes. It has a train, like a locomotive train, a long part that extends in the back. Very charming. But what's the problem? Easy to trip over. Ah, this is where the bustle does its work. The top of the skirt is pleated in the back, and under the pleats, the fullness is taken up by the bustle. This lifts the train off the ground just enough that instead of dragging, it floats. And so a woman can climb stairs, get in and out of a carriage, turn quickly, and even dance. And she will not trip on her train.
Still as graceful as a zephyr, my dear.
Kind of you.
Well, the next thing I'll put on is an ascot. I'll be wearing that instead of a tie. Now, we have ties in my day and age, but I'm wearing an ascot because it's a large piece of silk, and once again, it lets people know that I can afford to wear a large piece of silk, and it shows people that I have money. Now, ascots fit much looser than ties do. They just kind of flop around on the front of a man's shirt. So to hold it in place, men have these. This is a stick pin. It's got a jewel on the front and a very sharp point on the back, and as its name implies, it just sticks through all the layers of a man's ascot so that it holds in place. And I have this backing to make sure I don't get stuck. Go.
Dashing, my dear.
And now I'm going to put on my vest or waistcoat. Gentlemen at all levels of Victorian society wear vests. It's a chance for a gentleman to have a little color in his wardrobe. Most Victorian men's clothing is brown or gray or black. But in a man's vest, he has a chance to show off a little color. And there's a very important reason for a vest. Let me ask you, how many of you have wristwatches on today? Wristwatches. No wristwatches in the Victorian era. Instead, we have pocket watches. This is a pocket watch. It's a style known as a hunter because it's got a hatch that opens up and protects the crystal face of my watch in case I was hunting or doing something physically active. The watch attaches to a chain. The chain attaches to my buttonhole, and the whole thing goes right in my pocket.
A nice thing to do for a man in your family is to give him some charms to wear on his watch chain. Also, if a gentleman belonged to a fraternal organization like the Elks, for example, he might have insignia for that on his watch chain. Go right on, dear.
Well, I suppose the next thing I should put on is my coat. And you'll see right away it's longer than coats in your day and age. We do have coats that are shorter coats that are coming into fashion. We refer to them as jackets. They're becoming fashionable due to the influence of sport. You can see it'd be very hard for me to, ride a bicycle, play tennis or golf, or go for a row in the river in a coat this long. But if you're a professional man, a doctor, a lawyer, a politician, a captain of industry, this is your coat, because it lets people know at a glance you are someone to be reckoned with.
So very elegant.
Thank you, my dear.
Well, now, I am wearing a new garment for the 1890s. It's called a blouse jacket. Ladies used to wear blouses and then waistcoats, vests like the one my husband has, and then a jacket on top of that, and then sometimes a cape on top of the jacket. But all of that took a long time to put together in the morning, and so women couldn't take that much time to get dressed anymore. Do you know why? Because so many of them are working, of course. Women have always worked in the home as wives and mothers, but now they are working outside of the home. They are teachers, nurses, sometimes even doctors, secretaries, even newspaper women. What's that intrepid young woman who writes for the New York Globe?
Oh, Nellie Bly, Around the World in 76 Days.
That's the one. And so women can take an hour and a half to get pulled together in the morning. This garment combines all of the other garments into one. Even so, it has lots and lots of buttons, more than 60. Notice the sleeves. They're the most fashionable sleeve of the 1890s. They're called leg of mutton. Does anyone know what mutton is? It's another word for sheep. And the sleeves are shaped like the hind leg of a sheep, narrow at the bottom and wide at the top.
Now, I put on gloves because I'm going outside. Victorian men and women feel it's very rude to offer a bare hand to someone you meet on the street, so gloves are definitely part of something you would put on if you were leaving the house. Hats. Both Victorian men and women wear hats. Women's hats are far more elaborate than men's, and unlike men, women can wear their hats indoors. It's considered a huge social faux pas for a man to wear his hat inside. And of course, if a man were to meet a lady on the street, he would always tip his hat as a show of respect.
Thank you, my dear. Now, as my husband mentioned, women's hats were very elaborate. No woman would dream of having just one. She had as many as she could possibly afford. And hats for ladies were decorated with artificial fruit and artificial flowers and ribbons, but most of all, feathers, sometimes even complete birds. In fact, so many birds were killed to provide feathers for ladies' hats that some species disappeared altogether, became extinct.
Now, for the sake of education, I will put on my hat indoors. It's a style known as a derby, first made popular in England, but popular worldwide now. And though I am dressed from the top of my head to the tips of my fingers to the bottoms of my feet, I am still not quite ready for a walk about the grounds because I lack the one essential item of a Victorian man's walking out ensemble, his cane or walking stick. Because I'm a captain of industry, I have a lovely gold head on this cane. Were I a working man, I'd have something made all of wood, something stout like oak or ash. And were I a young man, trying to catch a lady's eye, I have a cane made of bamboo that I twirl, and hopefully that'll get her to look my way.
I remember.
My day I twirled like a dervish. Well, you look very lovely, my dear. Are we ready for our perambulation about the grounds?
I believe we are.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful audience. It's been our pleasure talking to you. Do give yourselves a round of applause. You've been great. Ah, yes.
Women didn't consider themselves really dressed unless they had a little something about their neck and shoulders, in this case a mix who died of old age.
Well, it does make a vast difference. We do want to make a good impression. Again, remember, the people that stay here are rich, famous, and powerful, so maybe we'll even see the plans. Yeah. Again, it's been a wonderful audience. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's really been wonderful.
Wait, my mouth.
Oh, yes.
Was a mop. It was a good way to keep your fingers warm in cool weather and keep a handkerchief or your smelling salts or a little money. I might wish to buy something.
What are the odds? Well, I'm glad to see that we got that. We do want to make a very good impression. You look lovely, my dear. Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been wonderful, wonderful.
Perhaps you didn't bother to look at the sky, but I did, and I saw...
Ah, foolish me. Rain or shine, Victorian women carried parasols when they left the house. In the rain, it kept off the wet, and in the sun, it kept off the heat. And either way, are we all ship-shape in Bristol fashion?